Saving America one entrepreneur at a time. It's the Biz Wrap Podcast with your host, Michael Manahan. The show that celebrates small business and entrepreneurs. It's Biz Wrap Radio with your host, small businessman, educator, and author, Michael Manahan. And welcome to another edition of Biz Wrap Radio. It's your host, Michael Manahan, and thank you so much for joining me today. If you are new to the show, Biz Wrap Radio is the show all about entrepreneurs and small business people. We are here trying to help you, the small business people of America, make America great again. Never mind Donald Trump making America great again. What we need to make America great again is the small business people in this country. You know, this country was built on small business people. Small business people drove the economy for 200 years, and quite frankly, they're still driving the economy. Most people in the United States work for a small business. As we pulled out of the recession, most new jobs were created by small business, and I know the government and the big corporations would like you to think otherwise, but just reading in the newspaper that HP has just decided to lay off another 30,000 employees. Yes, that's 30,000 employees. That's an entire town or village or city or whatever you want. So, but you know, at the same time as small business is pushing forward the economy and we're creating the jobs, there's a war against small business. It's being waged by government. It's being waged by big business. It's being waged by unions. You know, when was the last time you really heard of a small business getting a bank loan? I mean, those things ended, I think, about 30 years ago. And now the government regulation on small businesses, it's unbelievable. We've talked previously on the show about stories of it takes a year to open a yogurt shop in the city of Los Angeles. A year to open a yogurt shop. My God, what are we coming to? And then there's the grab of money by the IRS going around and grabbing small business bank accounts. And literally you have to fight them tooth and nail to get your money back for no good reason, just because they think you might be doing something suspicious. So we're here to help you, the small business people, do what you really should be doing. You should be making a profit. Yes, it's not a dirty word. You want to make a profit in your business. You want to take care, first and foremost, you and your family. Provide a good lifestyle for you and your family. Then take care of your employees. They're helping you make that money. And finally, take care of your community. And the one thing I love about small business people, and I've talked to thousands of them over the years, is small business people do get involved in the community. And when you have your local 10K run or your local event going on, and I don't know, Coca-Cola comes in and puts up their banner, all Coca-Cola is interested in is advertising. But when the small business community puts up some money to sponsor a local event, it really comes from the heart. The small business people are involved in the community. They want the community to be successful because they live in the community. And it reminds me of a lady that I interviewed on the show. I believe her name was Patricia Williams. She owns 10 McDonald's restaurants right in the heart of kind of the south central Los Angeles. And what she does in the community is absolutely unbelievable. She provides educational supplements for her students. I mean, it's just amazing. So anyway, enough talking about my opinions on business. We have, as always, a great guest lined up today. And, you know, we've talked on the show many times about you can't, as a small business person or an entrepreneur, do it alone. You need help. You need other business people, whether they're experts in different fields, mentors. You just need other business people to be around to share ideas, share thoughts, and to keep your spirits up when you're battling and struggling to make business happen. And so I'm very pleased to have an individual on the line who is he's on the executive staff of CEO Space International, which is an entrepreneurial forum. It's held 5 times a year, and it's James Dygert. Jim, welcome to the show.
Good morning. Thank you. Yes.
I'm not going to read your bio here because it is absolutely. It would take me the rest of the show just to read it. You are a very accomplished person. You've done a lot of things. So just give me, in a nutshell, tell me can you give me just like a 3-minute version of who you are and what you do?
Okay, well, great. Well, 3-minute version. That's going to be simple. Well, I'm not young. I'm 63 years old, and during that time, I've had a lot of opportunity to be in business. I've owned a company now for over 30 years, and before that, I used to work for the big boys. I worked for the U.S. Treasury Department. I was worked for the Office of the Comptroller of the Currency. We are the agency that helped protect the banks from failure. Guess what? That's kind of a cliche thing these days.
It obviously worked very well.
But that training was exceptional. It taught me a lot about systems, practices, policies, procedures, but mostly about systems and how business organizations, and of course we're speaking of smaller organizations, that training in that large environment gave me a chance to chunk it down and use it in a smaller environment. Again, owning my own company for the past 30 years, I started with a very small company, and I've grown it over time. And it was all about systems, processes. How do we get moving forward with our business? We do a lot with our individuals, with ourselves, but how we apply it back into our businesses is paramount for our business success. So for me, it's been that's been a journey for me. And being on the executive staff at CEO Space, I see a lot of small and early stage businesses, and that's what we help with. And that's one of my areas that I help with particularly. So,
well, that's great.
That's kind of me in a nutshell. Mm-hmm.
So you've got a tremendous background. Tell us a little bit more about CEO Space International, because I'm quite sure that many people listening have never heard of it. What does the organization do? What is it? What are its goals and objectives?
Surely. Its goals is to create a cooperative activity in business development. We have competition everywhere in our world. We enjoy competition in sporting events and all kinds of things. But really, when we're dealing with our own entities and ourselves, the best way to grow is through a cooperative model, cooperation within your organization and cooperation within your marketplace. And this is why we talk about things all the time with what are we doing for customer relations. It's a cooperative relationship. So CEO Space was designed and created by a gentleman who was first an investment banker, had a long lineage of investment banking, and his grandfather and his great-grandfather. His direct father, his immediate father, went into the human development space and started to work a lot in the self-actualization. How do we become better humans? How do we do better things? And as a combination, in fact, this gentleman worked with overseas and taught the capitalism to the entire Pacific Rim, from Japan down. Edward Demings was responsible for helping to promote, in fact, we still have internationally the Demings Award, that internationally promote best practices in business development. And this gentleman worked side by side with Dr. Edward Deming and taught the development of capitalism, the free marketplace system, how we have the ability to build and grow our own businesses. And there's a combination between that and investment banking. This gentleman, Bernie Dorman, created what is now CEO Space, and it's been almost 25 years now. And it's all about how the business owners need two things. They need to have the skill set that they don't already have, and through gap analysis and work and so forth, they can find out what they need next and who they need next to make that work. But they also need fuel in the gas tank. In other words, most often businesses fail, not because the business owner is a very competent individual, normally in their own vocation and profession. And it's not because they didn't have a good idea. And it's not necessarily because it wasn't the right timing. Most businesses fail fail because they run out of cash. And again, that was what we did. My experience with the banks was stress testing and making sure the solvency and liquidity of a banking institution. Well, businesses are no different. If we look at a small business in a neighborhood community in a rural America, it's no different. It's how do we keep enough fuel in that gas tank to get across the desert? Because at different times we're going to run into circumstances where the business is just simply choked for cash. Mm-hmm. How do we get that through? And in your opening remarks, you were talking something about bank loans. So we, in the United States, being a free marketplace system, we have the ability to have a variety of actual techniques in order to have capital in our balance sheets on our as an asset in a bank account. And most business owners don't know how to do that. So we teach that. And we teach about how to do cooperative growth.
Jim, okay, this is great stuff. I'm really enjoying this. We got a break for commercials here. I'm speaking with James Dygert. He's on the executive staff of CEO Space International. It's your host, Mike Manahan. We'll be back with BizRap Radio right after these messages. And welcome back to BizRap Radio. It's your host, Michael Manahan, and thank you so much for joining us today. If you just joined us, we are on the line with James Dygert. He is on the executive staff of CEO Space International. We were just talking about CEO Space International, what that organization is. And Jim, thanks again for being on the show.
You're welcome. Thank you.
So we're talking a little bit about cash, but one of the things I've noticed in having worked with well over 100 companies as a consultant and advisor in my career is I've seen companies that have good products, they've got good cash, they have enough cash, and they even have what seem like competent management, but they just somehow fail on the execution side. And my observation is that a lot of entrepreneurs and small business people do not spend enough time focusing on what I would call organizational structure or organizational design. What are your thoughts on that?
Oh, you are absolutely spot on. This is critical. We know that the two things that people need are the information they don't have, knowledge set and specialized areas of expertise, and we know that they need to have capital cash in order to run their companies. But you're spot on with the fact that most business owners don't understand the correct sequence to roll out their process. Now, there's sequence steps that need to be applied wherein it's a strategy or a marketing activity. Think of just running a campaign, an advertising campaign or a marketing campaign. You're going to start out with research. You're going to start out with, analysis and in determining how you're going to approach what you're going to do, and then you're going to roll it out in phases and stages. But most business owners don't recognize that they need to do that in a holistic way to their whole operation. There's a lot of moving parts. But in essence, there's not very many. There's a lot, but there's not too many. We often call this moving fast slowly. In other words, attacking or addressing the marketplace, your development of your organization in a way that it's methodical, it has processes, procedures, and steps, and phases in the way in which you roll it out. Now, we're all pretty familiar. Most people talk about that annual budget report, for a company that may be large enough to have budgeting. But for small and medium-sized businesses, particularly small ones, oftentimes they either A, don't do it at all, or B, only do it once a year, if they're so good to even do it. But now, the marketplace shifts way too fast, as we're so familiar with. The mechanisms that we're confronted with as business owners change so quickly that you've got to be prepared for change. You've got to really look at and know that there's a corner coming, and then you somehow have to have a mirror up in order to kind of see around the corner a little bit. This is difficult. And the best way that it can be done is the business owners need to support other business owners. We're seeing this as a plethora of activity around the United States and elsewhere, where business owners are really starting to get together and cooperate and collaborate with other business owners and getting together in whether small groups, like you have your website for a tremendous amount of information for people to research and go to. It's that kind of thing that people have to be familiar with. They just have to. They have to, as iron sharpens iron, we have to be strong with this. There's no cruise control anymore. We're just, the marketplace is shifting too much, and we have to be prepared for it.
Yeah, and I think that is such good advice. And again, something that we really like to do here on BizRap Radio is to leave our listeners with gems of advice. And you know, sometimes the conversation goes on and they miss those little gems. But there's one you've really got to listen to if you're listening to us today. You've got to be prepared. You've got to be figuring out and understanding what change is occurring external to your business, because that change that's occurring external to your business is going to affect your business, and you don't want to be sideswiped because all of a sudden some change occurs that materially affects your business and you didn't see it coming. And very often having conversations with other business people, the subjects of what's going on that could affect your business down the road will come up. They're great topics of discussion. So, Jim, let's say I come to CEO Space International, and I've been invited. I apologize, I've not made it yet. I do plan on doing it, but I like many small entrepreneurs. You know, I run a couple of small businesses. I'm also a full-time professor at California State University. I teach accounting and finance, and on top of that, I try and do a radio show to the best of my ability. And some might say, "Well, Mike, you're doing a little too much," but hey, it's fun. I'm having a great time. I'm enjoying myself, but I want to go to CEO Space. So typically, what would I experience if I went to CEO Space?
Well, first of all, you're going to be confronted with our arrangements are such that we have faculty, mentors, advisors, coaches, and our own staff. And then we also have the skill set of our members themselves, whether it's a first-time member or a returning graduate member. And we have plenty of returning graduate members because they recognize this very simple thing that we just talked about, which is they need a tune-up at different times. There's no such thing as being completely prepared for all circumstances. And as time goes by, excuse me, I have a jet going off in the background here, as business environments change, you need to be prepared for them. And quite frankly, we've all kind of heard the adage, instead of working in your business, you need to work on your business. Well, one of the best arrangements is to get out of your business for a period of time and so that you can step back and see the forest instead of being in the trees. And CEO Space is designed to do that. So with our faculty and mentors and advisors, you're going to have an environment where it's almost about a 1 to 3, even sometimes 1 to 2 or 3 environment. In other words, for each person that's at our forums or conferences, there'll be a faculty member for every 2, maybe as many as 3. We use the environments of meal tables, like 90-minute meal tables as masterminds. Of course, we have some formal classes, and we have speakers from the stage, and these are all subject matter experts. We'll have as many as 30 and sometimes 40-plus faculty members, not including our mentors and advisors, at any given conference. And so you're really getting a hands-on approach, talking to people who have done it. They've been there, done it, got the T-shirt, so to speak. And they've written the books, they've done the things, they have experiential activities in their lives, they've built businesses, they're well respected in their industry for whatever subject matter area they're teaching, anything from law to social marketing to sequence to organizational behavior to just a plethora of business activities. And so you're really, I like to say, you're in a designed environment that's specifically built so that it can custom manufacture whatever that member needs. because we're there throughout multiple days, and breakfast started early, and we're having 3 meals a day, and we're having classes in between, and then plenty of time to interact in the evenings. So we're really there to help each business owner custom design and build out their plan. And as their plan begins to get implemented, and they certainly can come back in future forms, we do these 5 times a year, they come back because they need a tune-up. And maybe 2 months later, it could be 6 months later. And they come back, and this is how you grow in stages and phases.
Wow, that sounds so powerful. And just to be in that environment, I don't know about other people, but when I'm around business people who are making things happen, I just get so energized. I just feel like, wow, we could conquer the world. I mean, we could do so much just by making business happen, making it effective, and helping each other. But look, we're going to have to go for another commercial break. It is Mike Manahan, your host, BizRap Radio. I'm talking to James Dygert. He is on the executive staff of CEO Space International, an organization that helps entrepreneurs achieve their goals and dreams. We're going to talk more about CEO Space and so get some more advice from Jim right after these messages. And welcome back to BizRap Radio. It's your host, Michael Manahan, and thank you so much for joining us today. If you just tuned in, we are speaking with James Dygert. James is on the executive staff of CEO Space International, and we've been talking about CEO Space International and how it can help entrepreneurs achieve their goals. Jim, again, thanks for being on the show today.
Well, you're welcome. Thank you.
Okay, so let's move the discussion. By the way, if you're interested in CEO Space International, I'm sure you can just go Google them and get their website and find out more information on how to join one of their events. And if you have the opportunity, I highly recommend it. But Jim, you also are associated with Performance Management Institute, PMI.com, and really it's you're kind of studying, it looks like, how you improve performance in organizations. So let's talk about that. I notice you have this term, programmed related growth. What exactly does that mean?
Well, much like our topic of conversation here in the 2 prior sessions on this call, we talked about phases and growth in stages and phases of an organization and in designing it. So from the mechanics of fundability, businesses need to have a revenue stream that's consistent, or at least designed in a way in which they know what their planned activity is in terms of revenue, expense and revenue, so it's source and use. And then at the same time, as an organization grows from a solopreneur into a company, and then later into a larger company, and eventually maybe even into an enterprise, that planning, that understanding from not just accountancy, but how do we have this behaviorism inside of the organization? Many of your listeners may be familiar with tribes. A lot has been written about it lately, but we're talking about the organizational behavior of the employees that participate in that organization, and it may even be subcontractors or joint venture agreement people, or how many other business adjacent or associated activities with that organization. But in order to plan for, it needs to be identified, and then we bring that down into behaviorism. We actually create the metrics to assign that to your financial statements. Now, once we assign that to your financial statements, now we have a metrics that we can actually watch and monitor, and it truly becomes a real KPI, or key performance indicator. A lot of times people will use the term key performance indicator to indicate other things. How many pallets went off the loading dock this day or this week, or how many widgets got completed. That's really not a performance indicator. It might be a key indicator of things that are being accomplished, but key performance indicators have to be tied back into their financial statements.
Gotcha.
There are 3, right, of course there's 3 bottom lines. It's not just net profit, but it's return on assets. And the one that most people don't pay attention to is operating cash flow.
Right.
This is the key to successful business operations. And when we look at operating cash flow and we tie that back in to organizational behavior, we actually create a mirroring complement to the chart of accounts being a chart of behaviors. And when we do that, now you can be able to reconcile, meaning you can actually see on a single page the true performance of the organization.
Well, this is a really important subject because one of the things I ask a lot of small business people I meet is, how do you measure success in your business? And you would not believe the number of times I've asked that question, and I've got this blank stare back from the business owner. And by the way, I'm not talking about some little small business that's doing $100,000 a year. I've asked that question of companies doing $10 million a year. How do you measure success in your business? And it's like, well, we do business, and once a year once every quarter, the bookkeeper puts together the financial statement, and I kind of look at the financial statement. But you're talking about taking performance measurement to really the next level and using it really as a management tool to guide decision making within the organization.
Surely, absolutely. There's a lot of other tools that are in existence, and they are fine, and they should be used. Everything from cost accounting to what do I want to say? Strategic mechanisms like balance sheet and squared balance sheet viewing. Those are all great tools, but they oftentimes need to be done much like if your listeners are familiar, a balance sheet is a single picture in time. Well, once something like that is done, oftentimes it can't be used as a tool to move forward with. What we're looking at is having the metrics that everything moves as your business moves. So we're really looking at the documentation visually of how your organization is running with anticipations of what will be coming in the next 30, 60, 90 days, as well as what has happened historically, all viewable from a single sheet of paper.
Wow, that is really powerful. To me, that just sounds so much sense. Now, if somebody goes to PMI.com, is there information on some of these tools that they can get from that site?
Yes, and go to Performance Management Institute. Spell it all out, performancemanagementinstitute.com, please.
Okay.
But yes, there are tools there. In fact, there is a free widget software tool there that people can get in order to have a 4-period metrics in order to begin this process. In fact, we have a very inexpensive tool there for people that want to go beyond that. And it doesn't take a lot. There is a certain amount of acumen skills, but most business owners, we have found, if they just dedicate a few minutes, we can educate them and give them real financial literacy.
That is just amazing. I just love to hear this because, first of all, I love that word free. And again, I encourage listeners, if you're a small business person, if you're an entrepreneur, there is so much out there that is absolutely free that can help you do a better job of running your business, planning your business. Again, it's performancemanagementinstitute.com. That's performancemanagementinstitute.com. Check it out. Go download this widget or use this widget that Jim is talking about to help and you do a better job of running your business. Now, Jim, we've only got a few minutes left, but the last thing I want to talk about is something that you've mentioned here, which is culture. And you talk about performance becomes culture and a performance-based culture. For a lot of our listeners, culture may not be a topic they're intimately familiar with, but what does that mean, and how do we use culture in our business?
Well, every business has a culture, regardless of whether you understand it clearly or not. It does have a culture. It's the conglomeration of the people that make up the business. Whatever that culture is. If the culture is it's okay to come in late, the culture is to take certain days off if you feel like it. The culture is, it's okay. The dog ate my homework. I don't have that report done, or it's okay that I didn't make those phone calls. That's your culture. On the other side of things, in order for us to measure and get a culture that's fine, see, we love measurement. We love numbers. We love the score. How many yards are there to go? How many innings are left? What's the, how far ahead are we? We love that outside of the workplace, but we have come to adapt ourselves and believe that metrics inside the workplace are used to punish, and they're used to diminish activity. And the reality is, numbers can be a great tool to make people happier. Numbers can be a great tool to give positive responses back, but only when they are done with a fairness, and they have to be equitable across the line. This is why we use metrics that come straight from the accounting and records of the operation. We believe that the best way to get people on board and to perform at their highest potentials, individuals inside of the organization, is to give them a status and an understanding of what their performance really does mean to the overall activity of the organization. When people can understand that they're participatory, their participation makes a difference, and that the results are seen, and that those results can be viewed in a way in which people are rewarded throughout the organization, then we believe that we will change the culture of the organization. Now, changing it is one thing. Maintaining it is another. And this is, again, the reason why these metrics are so important, because it's a chronological history on an ongoing basis moving into the future. So now that we always have a chance to be able to show back to the individuals, by the department, by whatever division it might be, how the functionality of that organization is running.
That just makes so much sense. And measurement, yeah, you're right. Look at we wouldn't want to watch a basketball game if we didn't know what the score was, right? If they didn't keep that scoreboard up there, that would be it. We wouldn't bother watching the game. Yeah, we often don't have adequate, efficient, effective scoreboards in our business. So what you're saying makes so much sense. Jim, I'm sorry to say we are out of time. If somebody listening today wanted to get hold of you personally, how could they do that?
Oh, well, the best way is just because we talked about CO Space International, use my email account there. It's just J. Dygert, spelled D-Y-G-E-R-T. That's Dygert, D-Y-G-E-R-T, J. Dygert, at CEOSpaceInternational.com. And you got to spell that all out, but it's CEOSpaceInternational.com.
Okay, so it's J. Dygert at CEOSpaceInternational.com. Don't forget, check out PerformanceManagementInstitute.com. Great stuff. Jim, I'm hoping I can get out to CEO Space. When is the next CEO Space going to take place?
We have them 5 times a year. Our next one's coming up in early October, so we're only about a month away now.
Okay, well, maybe I can join for that. Jim, thanks again for joining us today on BizRap Radio.
Thank you. Enjoyed it so much. Thank you.
And it's your host, Mike Manahan, BizRap Radio. We'll be right back. And welcome back to BizRap Radio. That was Jim Dygert, associated with CEO Space, an amazing organization. If you're a business person, you're looking for mentors, you're looking for a group you can network with, a group that can perhaps help you take your business to the next level, you want to check that out. CEO Space, I think you go to ceospace.com. They do have a convention coming up in October, and might be something you want to join. But now, just to close off the show, I've got an old friend of mine, David Frazier. David is an his company is an investment research firm. His website, investorsmonitor.com. That's investorsmonitor.com. David, thanks for joining me on the show.
Hey, Mike. Well, I'm not really an investment firm. I operate an investment research firm, Mike, but that's fine. Yeah, go ahead. Nice to be here today. Thanks for having me on.
Okay, so if you're operating an investment research firm, then you must be on top of what's going on in the stock market. And we've seen some amazing things happening here in the last few months. We saw some huge losses, and I heard the experts say it was because of what's going on in China and what's going on in Europe. But what's happening in the market, and can you give us any insights as business people, what we should maybe be looking out for and what we should be thinking about?
Sure. Okay. In the market and what you should be really thinking about. Okay, here's number one. Turn off the TV as far as financial shows are concerned. Quit reading financial newspapers or financial magazines because you're wasting your time. because if you want to know what you should be thinking about, you'll never get any of thoughts on that subject that will help you until stock prices have already fallen sharply and until the economy is in a recession already. It'll be too late to really do anything. So what's happening in the stock market, real briefly, is we've heard a bunch of nonsense about what's going on in China. And what was the other reason? I don't really recall. But this is just complete nonsense. I told my persons that pay for my services to get completely out of stocks on May 16th. That's 2 weeks before the S&P 500 index and the Dow Jones Industrials and stock prices in general peaked. And the reason I did so had nothing to do with China. It had to do with the fact that a lot of indicators that I've followed for more than 30 years are showing that the U.S. economy is going to slow during the months ahead, that the housing market's probably peaked during this phase of the cycle, and that the employment situation is going to worsen. So that's what your folks should be thinking about. So they really need to start reining in again and start managing their costs. So I'm going to leave it at that. I don't want to get too long-winded. That's a lot to throw at you.
Well, but hang on. It seems to me we've barely, okay, I know from a pure economic statistical framework, we've probably been out of the recession for a while, but it seems to me that we really have not recovered, as say we have in past history, from this recession. It seems that the economy is still sluggish. I hear moans and groans from business people that business isn't robust as they would like, and they're still having trouble accessing capital to grow their businesses. And while we did have a bit of a recovery in the housing market, we have not yet seen housing come back to, say, where it was in 2006 before the crash. So what really, you're suggesting perhaps the economy's slowing when really it never even seemed to get started all that well, in my opinion.
Well, you are exactly correct. Everything that you just said is completely correct. Yeah, the economy never improved in any substantial way since the big downturn that occurred in 2008 and the first part of 2009. So you're entirely correct about that. But what I'm saying is we did have some increases in GDP. That is and therefore we did have economic growth at least over the past few years. It has been very, very sluggish, but now we're going. My indicators, which have been very, very reliable over many, many years, are showing that in addition to that sluggishness, that the economy is going to now begin to grow at even a slower rate. So yeah, it's overall it's a pretty bad environment out there.
And of course, it particularly hurts our audience, which is small business people and entrepreneurs. Small business people many of them are scraping by, and I know there's always the few success stories we hear about, and I love those. But I know a lot of small business people who are not taking anywhere near the cash out of their businesses that they were 10 years ago. I've heard probably 50 small business people I've talked to over the last 3, 4, 5 years have said to me, "Damn, I wish I'd sold the business and retired back in 2005." And we say that very quickly, but 2005 is 10 years ago. I mean, we have been in this kind of almost economic doldrums, if you will, for a lot of people for a long time. What's going to spur a change? And is there anything we can do as business people? Do you have any ideas what we can do to maybe improve our own situation as we continue through this what appears to be just this ongoing, long-lived, sluggish kind of economy?
Well, yeah, I don't know if I, have a utopian answer to that, but you're asking me. So my opinions are as follows: is hey, get accustomed to it at least until somebody with some brains is put into the White House. And no, Barack Obama does not have any brains when it comes to economics. And what I mean by that, vote for someone that's going to indicate that they will propose lowering taxes and getting rid of government regulation, getting rid of some government regulation at least. And don't just vote yourself, because that's not going to do any good. You better tell everyone that you can, try to convince everyone that you know to do the same. But more directly, it's going to, until that happens, we're going to see this sluggishness continue. And therefore, what do you need to do? You need to manage your costs very, very well. You need to try to find some way to differentiate your products or services from your competition. You got to try to find some way, and you need to get as much exposure out there that you can in marketing for how your products or services are a little bit different. I don't know if that really helps much. Probably a lot of your folks have already thought of and are doing those things, but
I don't know that they are.
Not, that's what you're doing.
I find in general when talking to small business people that, first of all, there is a lack of cost management, at least in the way I think of cost management. It's like the restaurant that if the restaurant is slow this evening, the law says that you can send somebody home after 4 hours. Do small business restaurants often keep that person on an extra couple of hours because, they want to take care of their employees? They probably do. So that minute kind of cost management, looking at every little cost and saying, do we really need to spend money on that? No, a lot of small businesses don't do that. And quite frankly, it continues to amaze me the number of small businesses that I come across who do nothing. I mean, nothing in terms of marketing. From a little restaurant I was trying to help out here that's just, a few blocks away, doesn't even collect email addresses from their customers, to the local dry cleaner I use, and the lady was moaning and groaning about her dry cleaning business. But the fact is, I've not seen a single marketing effort that she's attempted in the entire time I've been using her. So I think that's very good advice. Hey, David, that's it. We're out of time. It's a short segment today. We have to go, but I appreciate you joining me today.
Well, thanks for having me on, and look forward to being on again.
Okay, great. At BizRap Radio, we believe we can fix the United States of America through a fundamental concept that individuals pursuing their own economic interests in free markets will create more prosperity for more people than can ever be achieved through government regulations and a planned economy. I'm your host, Mike Manahan. It's BizRap Radio. We'll be back again next week.